Hi, I'm Jason Gore for ThatShelf.com. We're here to look at the BenQ 4100, their latest projector in the line.
Shelf.
So fans of the channel know that I sort of entered the world of projectors about a year and a half ago with the 4550i. I'd done it slightly earlier. Just to add to the narrative, I was hosting actually an event where we were going to show Cave of Forgotten Dreams at a local cinema here, the Hot Dog Cinema. And I was, it had been some time since I saw it. And I knew that at this particular cinema, they were unable to actually play the film in 3D. And it really annoyed me that I hadn't seen it in so long in 3D. I do still have my 65-inch OLED where I can watch stuff in 3D. But I had decided that I wanted to spend not a lot of money and see whether I could do something in terms of portable screen and portable projectors. I had been playing around with some of them in a previous review gig. And I'm like, can I get something just cheap? And I bought actually BenQ that was actually pretty decent, actually really wonderfully effective at actually using manual lens shift to actually get it sort of working on my wall, which is in that direction. And I tried it, and I got some active glasses with it. And yeah, I got a chance to see the film in 3D. And of course, scratched an itch, and I started looking, and I wanted to see. And obviously, it's nothing would make me happier than to have the $30,000 laser systems. That would be incredible. I've dreamed about those for years. They're always the one that I want. Seems to be $30,000. OLED TVs at least came down a little bit, but this seemed the sweet spot. I mean, one of the things about this BenQ is that I had purchased. It was a bulb based, and it was years old, and it was going to cost me $500-600 for a new bulb or something like that, and that just annoyed me. And one of the advantages of solid state laser is that you get 20-30,000 hours out of the projector. Basically, you're going to get 15 years out of the thing before you actually replace it, depending on how much you actually watch, and I watch a not insignificant amount. So I got the 4550i. It's been great. There's all kinds of little complications in terms of my setup, especially when I went with the with my new processor that basically was getting HDCP information from both my OLED and the projector itself. I ended up having to do a whole switch box that will be talked about when I eventually do, finally, it is coming, when I do my video review of the Anthem. I've been waiting for firmware updates forever. Whether or not it's going to resolve some of the issues or actually improve stuff that we've been promised for a while. Regardless, the 4550i has, picture-wise, I love that it comes out of the box, fully calibrated. It did everything that I needed it to do. Has been pretty much a workhorse. It's a little bit slow switching between. Sometimes I have to sort of go to one input then another. It's quirky, especially since I have a two sort of display setup the way that it went. One thing that really pissed me off was that I thought, okay, so we have a digital device. It's going to have firmware updates like we are used to. And BenQ actually stopped allowing people to actually download their own firmware updates. They actually had to go in to do a formal RMA. So I'd set up the process, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to have the projector for a while. And many people, shout out to those incredibly generous people in the AVS forum. I know forums are a complicated place, but there's some exquisitely kind and informative and committed individuals there that know their stuff and are there not just to slag a given manufacturer, but actually try to help in a way that sort of formal tech support sometimes doesn't have the specific nonsense going on to be able to actually accomplish. So I saw that a lot of people that actually had the firmware updates were still having similar issues. I never had anything so catastrophic as others, unable to power off. It was clear there was some endemic stuff from the 4550i. Again, that's the North American model. I think 40, whatever it is in Europe, you know which model I'm referring to. And so the hope was that there was going to be, I was going to wait out. Sort of, I bought, not towards the end, yeah, certainly towards the last third of the life of the 4550i. I had hoped by then most of the things had actually been worked out. Certainly the ability to input certain things, etc., had been sort of rectified by then. But yeah, it was still a bit quirky. Now, I saw some people were finally getting satisfaction after having way more challenges than I ever had. And they were reaching out to BenQ, and BenQ was sending them, as part of an RMA, a 4100. And I thought, finally, this is the time to do it, and I don't want to be in some giant fight, and they're going to replace my 4550 with another 4550. That sort of obviously would defeat the purpose. But an incredible customer satisfaction moment, BenQ basically said, yeah, no problem. We'll send you 4100. We're going to actually cross ship it, which is what happened here. So I paid for this one. The other one gets sent back, and then I get my money back. But I have brand new 3-year warranty. I basically have the new model. Now, I had a record already of having some issues. They weren't doing it out of nowhere. But I recommend giving them a call if you've had situations in the past with the 4550 and just having the conversation with them. Incredibly professional, really fantastic customer support. Huge shout out, because previously, like a year ago, I was sending emails that were not getting answered. It was a disaster. I was super unhappy with what we were getting. It was taking weeks and weeks and weeks to respond to RMA emails. And I don't know if it's a new system. I don't know if it's new staff. I don't know if it's new managers. But the fact of the matter is, this is some of the best support I've got from any consumer electronics in a long time, if not ever. And I want to give a shout out to that. So again, I bought my projector. I've now got this one and the other one. You see what I'm saying? So this is, we're just going to look at it now. We're going to do sort of full review a little bit later to actually show fundamentally difference. But I have sort of, I have a complicated setup. I have an OLED and a projector that I want to have. I have relatively low ceiling. I mean, it's not quite where I'm touching, but pretty close while sitting down. And so I've had to sort of set my unit up in a specific way. So we're just going to take a moment here, and I'm just going to record me showing off my existing setup and what I've had to do to actually make my 4550i work, which is obviously where this is going to go. Spoiler, they look the same. So let's take a very quick look at the 4550i. So as you will note here, I have my 4550i sort of mounted upside down near the ceiling. I mean, this is, it's a little bit weird, but what it is that I actually have it on the sort of pipe stand here. It's right in front of my records, which is where it goes. It's sort of here, right near the lighting. But the reason for this, and it's on essentially a platform that stands on a speaker stand, and I had it so that it was proper way around, but I was having to use extensive keystoning. Now, one of the nice things about these units is that they do allow keystoning, but one of the annoying things about it is that because the actual dials, which are under here to actually shift the lens, it's 60 degrees, but it's only in this direction. And because of that, it really wants you, if it's going to be sort of high up, it really wants you to be mounting it on the ceiling. I don't want to mount it on my ceiling. I want to have a sense of portability. It's not a permanent mount for this particular unit. So what it's done is actually mounted here on this stand where it used to be sort of just sitting and on an angle. But I've used this aluminum laptop holder, and that has allowed me to actually have it basically very close to the ceiling where it goes through. Then if we come around back, see it's a little bit dusty, but if we come around back, this is where you get the power input and obviously my HDMI input. We'll look more closely at the differences in the back. There's one new HDMI input. But I'm just showing you sort of as my own little compromise about what was done to actually make essentially the equivalent of a ceiling-mounted projector, but on a stand, and then it aimed obviously towards the viewing position. So let's crack this guy open and actually see what's what. Again, I expect it to be extremely similar to what we are used to. The box is the same size. The chassis is the same size. It's essentially a version, I don't know if it counts as 2.0, but it's the same 6.5 millimeter. Yeah, Texas Instruments DLP chip, etc., etc., etc. Now, inside said box, we have some fun. So what do we got here? We have a power cord, a pretty actually decent IEC power cord, I gotta say. It's a little bit thick to the normal higher gauge, which is nice because it does draw power. We have quick start guide and some batteries for the remote, usual stuff. Just start dumping everything here. We got this guy, and we've talked about this guy before, but again, for those that haven't seen it, this is some fun that these projectors come with. What is fantastic about these is that out of the box, they are calibrated. This is one of those things like, my God, why don't they do this more often? It is such, it can't be too much in terms of time consumption. Just to know, filmmaker mode has been extraordinary improvement on televisions in general. The things come pretty much calibrated, but the fact that this actually comes with calibration documentation, why wouldn't you take the extra 10 minutes as a selling process? Absolutely amazing. So here we have this. Shows my color gamma, my model number, my serial number. Every projector is designed to meet ATTV color gamut standards. Here's my thing. I'll hide my serial number. You guys don't really need to worry about it. But look, it's a bunch of stuff. It's a bunch of stuff on paper that you probably can't see anyway. But the deal is it shows the color gamma and what it is compared to reference and the measured value. The amount that it's actually doing with Rec 709, all of this stuff, all the stuff that people watch HDTV YouTube channel for, and all that stuff. Watch, feel, experience. So here we have the calibrated Konica Minolta CL500, which is a beast, which is when I pay for calibration with my guy uses. Measurement point, center without lens shift, and Filmmaker Rec 709. So yeah, it looks like it's absolutely sort of fitting the triangle the way they want with DCI P3 and Rec 709. Rec 709 looking to be 100% and 703. DCI P3 being slightly outside. Whatever. It's really, really well calibrated out of the box. And this is it. I get my calibration report, so I can keep it with my projector. What's not to love? It's as I said, it's a simple thing to do, especially on a, this is a mid-level projector. And the fact that they do this, I think, is an extraordinary goes an extraordinary way to actually imbuing a sort of sense of confidence that they actually plugged the thing in and tested it rather than send it out on the equivalent of whatever projector mode is, dynamic or vivid or whatever we want to call it. What else we got in here? We have, yes, we have this. So this is the Android TV box. I actually don't install this. I found, particularly in the 4550i, that this was just slower than me actually using either my Shield or Apple TV. I mean, I have that stuff already. This is nice for it to sort of be in there and not get lost, but I didn't even open mine. But what's cool is it sort of slides in and becomes, this connects with the fourth HDMI inside and allows you to have essentially the equivalent of, well, it's not equivalent. It is Android TV and all the apps sort of built into there. This was not the best experience of me using it to go from here and then to sort of have the sound go back to my system. It wasn't really going to work that way because despite the fact that I should have eARC back and forth, because I was having all these issues of that if my LG OLED was on, this wouldn't actually show picture. It's a whole thing. So yeah, I tend to not use it, but I do like that it is included. And one thing that I might actually use it is if I ever use the projector as a full portable device. It's nice because I can just take it somewhere, let's say take it outside or whatever, set up a screen there, then I don't have to have yet another box to actually incorporate into it. And then what else we got here? We got the remote. And so the remote, let's see how it compares to the other one. Yeah, looks pretty much the same. A remote that I also never use. I have everything sort of plugged into. I'm still using a Nevo Q50. Shout out to those who are rocking Nevos. If you have one, let me know in the comments because I keep trying to have multiple versions of it because I know for a fact I will never get a remote nearly as good as that. I feel like there's something else in here, but here, there's just this. And it shows here, North American warranty information, thank you for purchasing. So there's a piece of paper for me, and everything else I think is out, which it is. So then we have a top part of the box. I don't know, should that be? No, that won't be. That's a terrible thumbnail. We have a not insignificant, but certainly not obnoxious projector with its weight. So let's just do this. See if I can. Let's put this back in. We're playing a little bit of cardboard Tetris here. We will close this, and then we're going to put this guy back on top. So this, my friends, is a brand new 4100. So as I open the thing up and take it out of its shroud, I like using the word shroud, what can I say? Not quite like moist as something that a word that people do not respond well to. I once did an entire electroacoustic song where we used words that people found really odd, and moist was certainly one of their. 4100 looks almost identical. On the top, we have a nice little gold thing. It says 4K. Of course it's 4K. It's 4K E-shift, of course. We have the dials that I talked about. That's where we're actually adjusting left and right, and basically from flat to up. It is up and down with it, and once you've already gone up, you can go back down. But it basically, if I was to put the projector like this, I can go this way, but I can't go this way. And that's really what I want. What would be ideal is for me to have this sort of near my ceiling and actually have the picture sort of, this be the top of the picture and have the image actually go downwards. It's not how it works. It basically is shooting up. This is a terrible thing, but it's shooting up at an angle like this, and you can adjust it this way, but you can't go down and make this the top, which is why mine is mounted like this. So upside down, it allows me to sort of be at the top of the ceiling and aim slightly down. The disadvantage of that is that for me to get access to the little tweaking bits was a bit of a challenge, and I had to figure out the best way to do it and actually get it flat. That is the pain in the butt part. The part that is fantastic is that I don't have to deal with keystoning. And I was using it for a long time with keystoning, some pretty substantial keystoning, so it was at the top and then sort of keystone to make it work. And I knew that it is worse with keystoning. It seemed particularly worse with keystone, or maybe it was psychosomatic, who knows. But the deal of the matter is that when I actually had the thing properly mounted, essentially upside down, and had it so that it worked through that way, the image quality really did seem to improve. Speaking of, I mean, I might as well make note of it. There's a couple things, actually, while we're here on the back, let's just do that. There are 2 feet here, just on the top. It would be nice if there were feet on the bottom. I found, especially when I had it this way, because not only did I have to keystone, but I actually had to aim the thing more like this, which was a little bit crazy to get over my head. I have a reasonably small, I don't know, 18 foot or whatever to 120 inch screen. I'm a crazy person. I'm sitting 5 foot from the screen. So for that, the light is not, our heads aren't getting in the way of the light path as much as possible. By being angled that way, but because there's no feet on the back, I had to sort of like lift it up. You can go this way, but you can't go this way, if that makes sense. But other than that, the construction's fine. It's actually based on what I've had before. There's vents on the side, reasonably quiet. It doesn't go totally crazy. And then under here, we will go through on this blue tape here. I mean, it was nice, as I already know this, even though it's a new model, because it's literally looks identical. So in here we have the zoom and the focus, again manual, which I'm totally fine with. If I had a constant image height, switchable screen with anamorphia and all of that stuff, stuck in an anamorphic lens, I would not be buying this projector. That I would have enough money to actually then buy the $30,000 monster and have all kinds of stuff in the rails to actually bring anamorphic lenses in and out. I don't have that. Yeah, it is. It does very, very well. I like the form factor a lot. It's my understanding, actually, it's interesting. Some people, I think, didn't get the light shield on there. As you can see, mine's there. And underneath this is the offset lens. By offset means it's not dead center. It's off to the side, which is fine. Based on my setup, it just means that I changed where the actual pole is mounted. So I'm actually going to pull down the other one, and we're going to talk about some of the differences between the two, if we can do this without too much drama. So just give me a sec. So here we have our twins, as it were. This one happens to be the new one. This one is the old one, but yeah, identical cases, identical layout. This is the 4550i. I'm going to do this without it dumping. Same top panel, same slides. Where things get a little bit different is on the back. If we go around here, we have, let's do this carefully. The way that the HDMI inputs work here, we have two HDMI inputs plus the one that's sort of in here. So if you want to count a total of 3 HDMI inputs. This is the latest model, last model of the 4550i that actually allowed specific types of eARC, HTCP 2.1, I believe it is. Probably says right there. But the point of the matter is that's this one that we actually have the two. And before I damage the new one, I'm just going to sort of, you get the idea. They look the bloody same, save for the back. What they have done with the new one, as I turn this around, pop off the lens cover. Let's pop that back on. Again, not a motorized lens cover, which is fine. Let's get here we are. So if we look on the side here, the HDMI are now, instead of being horizontal, they're vertical, and we have one extra one. I'm only going to plug one in anyway. It doesn't really matter. This doesn't do anything for me. But other than that, it looks basically identical. The unit itself is essentially the same chassis, slightly different board here. And the light engine is pretty much the same. Everything's the same. So what is the advantage? Well, the advantage, as always, is almost, especially these days, is that they keep the hardware the same and then they mess with software. And that's where things actually get really interesting in here. And I'm very much looking forward to not only a little bit more stability, that's the big thing, but also some features that I may or may not play with depending on how they actually sort of correspond to my viewing habits. So the specs, you know, everybody can go online and actually read the specs, but this one's pretty interesting. Obviously, it's 4K resolution, native aspect ratio 69, brightness 3200 ANSI lumens. If I'm not getting 3200 ANSI lumens on my setup, or needing to on a 120-inch screen, it's way more than bright enough. One of the big things is 3D that I have this for, as a contrast ratio 3 million to 1, sure. 30-bit color, 1.07 billion colors. Then the 4 LED light source, again the same. And the normal 20,000 hours on an Eco, their version of Eco is 30,000 hours. And then the optical throw, 1.5 to 1.5, zoom ratio 1.3. The lens is an f1.8, 2.25 millimeter, f17.02. Interesting. And the keystone adjustment, the 2D and the vertical is the same thing. It says plus or minus 30 degrees, horizontal plus or minus 30 degrees. It's interesting. And then the HDMI in, the HDMI 1 is 2.1, HDMI 2.1 with HDCP 2.3, which allows 4K 60 hertz with also a low latency mode. HDMI 2, 2.1, HDCP 2.3. So there's two of those with the 60 hertz ALLM mode. And then HDMI 3 is HDMI 2.1, 4K 120 hertz, downscaling to 1080p at 120 hertz. There, and the HDMI internal is an HDMI 2.0, and that's the one that actually works with the little block. There's USB Type A on the back. You know, that you can actually use to power some stuff. There's actually two of them. Yep, two. And then there's actually HDMI Type B, yeah, that's the USB Type B Mini B, and that's the service USB. There's an RS-232 in, which I'm never going to use, and then there's there's a 12-volt trigger if I did want to actually set this up with a trigger, which I'm not going to. This does have audio built in. It does have a 5-watt speaker. I'm never using that, but it is nice that, again, if I was to set this up outside, say, I would do it, but knowing me, I'd still hook up speakers to be ridiculous. Operating temperature is 0 to 4 degrees Celsius. Actually, that's good. Like, don't like have it out in the crazy sun. And then typical power consumption at 110 volts to 330 watts. So it's not insignificant. And then the acoustic noise, it has it as 30 decibel. Again, it's sort of here. My couch is here. Like, I'm basically touching the two. I have not a big room. And the white noise that comes off of this has been more than fine. I haven't had any issues with it whatsoever. Now, the big improvements, as it were, the big thing that this actually has is a bunch of stuff in terms of what they talk about in terms of some of the AI capabilities. So the big thing that they have now is this global contrast enhancer. It was sort of there before, but slightly different. Enhanced contrast and detail across dark, mid, and bright areas with custom tailored curves. Basically, I mean, this is a much longer conversation. This is not the video for this, but essentially what happens is when you have stuff, especially for things like HDR, Dolby Vision, etc., a projector is not going to have the same range that you would, for example, on my OLED, let alone some LEDs. And so at some point in time, it's going to have to take the existing curve from the darkest part to the lightest part and make it work with the technical specification of this particular unit. And how it does that is what actually improves. I mean, that's the short version of what's actually taking place with this sort of projector technology. Is it's taking the signal, and what image are we getting out? Is it using its own maximum and minimum to create a smooth gradation between the brightest brights and the darkest darks. That's essentially what it's doing. The reason I still have an OLED is so that the picture quality, when I actually really demand absolute blacks, that's why I have an OLED. There is a local contrast enhancer that essentially works not dissimilar to zones, when you actually have zones on an LED and the light up zones. In other words, it's basically analyzing in tiny little squares and actually doing that. So it's above and beyond. Whether or not I will actually do that sort of those elements, it's nice to have that. A lot of the stuff I ended up turning off to actually have potentially more accurate viewing, but it is nice for certain signals, maybe my Laserdisc, to actually give it a little bit more punch than otherwise. Dynamic tone mapping, the dynamic black, that's definitely something that and I likely to incorporate. A lot of times it creates some pulsing. You see things sort of shift in ways that I notice I'm not super pleased with. But, you know, it's there. But the HDR frame optimization frame by frame is really nice. Their new HDR10 Plus technology adds dynamic metadata to HDR10 source files, which is used to optimize each frame of the HDR video to enhance details in both bright and dark areas. So hypothetically, it looks better. So what we have here in the absolute short version is that it's a 4550, but better. That's all I got. I'm hoping more stable. I'm hoping it dives into the stuff that I want it to dive in quicker, slightly quicker. It doesn't sort of lock up when I'm switching between different inputs on my processor. My understanding is 3D is a little bit faster. It may be a little bit more janky, but we will see. But it doesn't come up with a sort of box the way that it used to, a display box, which actually is better. But the fact of the matter is that there's ISF modes on here. I could have it professionally calibrated. We'll see. I don't really have the screen to justify it. I'm at the moment, because I have an acoustically transparent need, I'm actually using a cloth screen. I tried actual hard screens, like hard material screens, normal screen materials, and honestly the picture that I'm getting from this crazy cloth screen is actually exquisite, because there's enough light output from here that is actually doing what I want it to do. Really, its size, and even on the most exquisite projector screen, I'm still not going to get a picture quite of the same caliber that I am on my 77-inch OLED. If I had the money, if there was such technology, I would have a 120-inch OLED. We're not there yet. So the fact of the matter is, this is very exciting for me to actually dive into. I'm going to sort of mount this and make it happen, plug it in. I will return with sort of a follow-up video about how all this stuff actually behaves. But I want to give sort of a quick look at the at my new baby. Thanks to BenQ actually sort of going above and beyond and deciding that the this one, which is going back, will be boxed up, and this is the one that's actually going to be mounted up there, and I'll have plenty to watch. For thatshelf.com, I'm Jason Gorber. Thank you so much for watching. Would love to know your thoughts about this particular model. If you've had a chance to use it, I'm happy to address any questions I can answer, or at least direct to those that might be able to do a little bit better at it. But yeah, here's my quick tease about a projector that I'm going to spend a whole bunch of time taking a look at. All the best. We'll see you next video. Take care.